Hello and welcome to Heartlate Vedic Astrology. Today I was going to talk about Vedic Astrology Jyotish analysis for the full moon or Purnima, what's coming up this weekend, 24th of February 2024. And it seemed like the overall theme for this moment in time is holding steady through change. And before I get into the talk, I just wanted to thank everybody for all the support that they give me and the channel. All the different ways you choose to support the channel through liking and lovely comments and sharing and just simply watching videos. It's all very helpful and appreciated. So thank you for that. Note before we get too deep into it, the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, financial, professional, or life advice of any kind. If you are in need, please contact an appropriate professional for support. And then you might take a minute or two to read the rest of this disclaimer. Excuse me. So, if you're new to Vedic astrology, Jyotish, or my videos, all of my teaching videos on the subject are in my concepts playlist, so they can all be found there. And wherever we see a double asterisk in one of my talks, that means there's a teaching video on that subject. So, astrology, especially Vedic astrology, has a lot of jargon and terminology and stuff that may not be familiar to you. So, for this particular video, since it's an interpretation video, and incorporate a lot of different concepts. So these are some of the other videos you might consider to get more out of this talk. So first off, North, South, and East Indian style charts. I actually include Western charts in that, but that's not part of the title. Introduction to navigating a birth chart, introduction to the constellations or rashis, constellation or rashi categories, planetary aspects, planet friends and enemies, graha, mitra, shatru. That's the latest one I did. Excuse me. Natural benefic and malefic planets or grahas, planetary directional strength or digbala, planetary exaltation, debilitation, nicha, bhanga, breaking, debilitation, karako, bhava, nashaya, or planet breaking house, nakshatras or lunar mansions, parivartana yoga, exchange of houses, and saraswati yoga, the artist combination. And then I have a whole playlist on each of the classic planets of Jyotish. They can all be found in my planets grahas list. Playlist, and then also for each individual house, the symbolism of each house. I have a whole playlist of houses or bhavas. And if you're not familiar with any of the symbolism of the houses, I would start with the lugna, also known as the ascendant rising sign or first house. Alrighty. Okay, so here's a chart for this moment in time. I am taking it for the time zone where I live near New York, so it is Eastern Standard Time. This particular moment of the full moon is 7:30 in the morning on February 24th. So the day lord is Saturn, and the hora lord is Saturn. So already that tells you a lot without getting any further into the chart. Saturn is a planet that's known for delays, obstacles, loss, death, chronic illness, most things that most people are not interested in or not happy about. And right now, Saturn is in a nakshatra called Satabhisha, which translates as 100 healers. So there can be a lot of difficulties, especially related to medical issues, mental, emotional, physical. So, and we'll see that there's plenty of that in this chart. So that's already sort of a kind of foreshadowing of what's coming here, as you can imagine. And this is going to be a difficult moment, but again, there is what I like about the Jyotish is that we can see different pockets in which there is some light and there's some hope, and how do we work with those pieces of light to bring more positivity, more light, if at all possible, to challenging situations. So that's what we're looking at here. All right, so a lot of Saturn energy already, and Saturn is also in its own sign of Aquarius or Kumbha, so Saturn's super strong. So and you'll see also that it's a Saturn dominated chart as well. You have 5 planets in Saturnian signs. You have 3 in Aquarius, 2 in Capricorn. Saturn is aspecting Jupiter. Saturn is aspecting the moon. The only thing that Saturn is not touching is Rahu and Ketu, which are sort of the wild card planets of Rahu and Ketu, so you don't know what's coming. So you can see again, 7 out of 9 planets are under the influence of Saturn. So heavy moment probably for many people. All right, and then the Shah period right now, so the planetary period is we got K2, more Saturn, K2, Saturn, and Jupiter. So, Jupiter is the positivity planet. It's like Santa Claus. So again, that's this kind of, light in the darkness, like, the dark night, you look up at the stars. And if you look at the stars enough, then you learn Jyotish, Vedic astrology. So there can be, positivity even during times of change and challenge. But with K2 and Saturn here, K2 is a planet that represents, well, it's an explosive planet. It's sort of like Mars. Mars is a fiery planet. It's an erratic planet, and then K2's got even more of a twist on it. And K2 can represent like separation and endings, almost like if you watch tarot card readings, the Tower card. It's that, yeah. So we've got K2, we've got Saturn, and we've got Jupiter. And now the planetary period, the Shah period, switches April 13th. So a couple months out almost, and that's going to switch to K2 Mercury. Okay, so just even with that, Mercury represents the rational mind. And it can also be a bit of a separationist type planet because when somebody's in their mind, they're not really connecting to others of the world through their heart or their spirit necessarily. They're making decisions, they're being logical, they're being rational, which can be definitely helpful. And so with K2 Mercury here, it's almost like creating a new mindset. And that was what I was seeing through the, analysis of the chart. So um, the Lagna nakshatra is Purva Bhadrapada. So the symbolism of Purva Bhadrapada is the front legs of a funeral pyre. Yeah. So, fire, cremation, and there's a transformative process. There's a destruction of the old here. And because it's the Lagna nakshatra, the lunar mansion for the whole chart, that's going to be a pervasive energy through the whole chart. So it's about letting go, right, and allowing things to transform into their new form. Because energy is not created or destroyed, it's just transformed. So there's challenge here for sure, but again, it may not be looking it may not be looking like all rainbows and, sunshine and unicorns, in the beginning here. Yeah, okay. And then the moon nakshatra, that's in Magha. Magha is symbolized by a throne. So you can think of like power and majesty and leadership here. And so I do think that part of what this moon is showing us, because the moon is the intuitive mind, the emotional mind, is how do we get the mind to step into, action and power during challenging moments. And this chart also reminded me a lot of the chart for the whole year. So if you're interested in a chart for the whole year, you might check out my, what was it, the Winter Solstice 2023, year 2024 video. Because again, this is another chart that's kind of similar in its vibe. So, yeah, so it's sort of how do we lead ourselves through these moments of challenge, right? It's Magha. The other thing about Magha is that it's related to the heart or the heart of the lion of Leo, the constellation of Leo or Simha in Sanskrit, and the heart of Leo is the star of Regulus. In Indian culture, Magha, that part of the sky, is thought to be the place where our ancestors reside. And so that's also indicating to me here, especially when you can see the moon. So we're starting to get in chart now. So the moon is in the 6th house. The 6th house is acute kind of accidents, injuries, so acute troubles, difficulties. And the 6th house is also enemies. So, and you can see all these arrows pointing at that little moon there. We have Jupiter, we have Saturn, we have Sun, we have Mercury, we have Mars. So we have 4 malefic planets, and then Jupiter is doing what it can to help bolster the moon here, the intuitive mind. But you can see there's a lot of challenge on the mind. So already there's going to be a lot of mental, emotional challenge, especially because in the mix here, we also have Mercury. So Mercury is the rational mind. So both of the mind planets, Moon and Mercury, are in this hot mix on the 612 axis. Okay. And so part of this is that during this current challenge, I think what's also being brought to light is that the challenges here and the way that, like if this was a person responding, um, this is deep. This is even deeper than I think personal psychology. I think we're talking about generational kind of karma and psychology, actually. So this is really about breaking cycles. So deep, deep, yeah. So, and then the context here, I've circled in this red circle here. We have Venus and Mars. Currently, Venus and Mars, as I'm recording this, are in planetary war because you can see they're about within a degree of each other. But Venus is just past Mars, so at this moment in time of the full moon, they are not in planetary war. But when I see planets this close, I mean, I still take them a few days out, even if they're not exactly within a degree of each other. So that can mean a lot of contention just with the one, but we're in between too. So then the blue circle here, even though Saturn and Mercury don't seem that close, Mercury is a very fast-moving planet. So within a few days of this full moon, Mercury and Saturn will be in the same degree of another planetary war. So four planets essentially in this chart are pretty much in planetary war. I would take it that way. And then the thing is that not only are all of these planets destabilized in planetary war, even if they're the winner, but the houses that they lord over or rule are going to be destabilized. So Saturn, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they all own two planets. So 8 out of the 12 houses here are going to be destabilized, besides the planets themselves. And these destabilized planets, we've got the sun sandwiched in here. We've got Saturn and Mars on Jupiter. We have all these planets again, like I mentioned, on the moon. So it's a lot of chaos. And then the thing is, Rahu and Ketu are out of the mix, but they're the wild card, so you can't really, you can't really, you never know what they're going to bring. So yeah, it's a challenging time. Okay. So let's go through house by house. We start at the top here at the Lugna, so that's also known as a ascendant, rising sign, first house. So that's the top diamond and the center top there. The 12 and the little 12 in the corner. The 12 in the corner represents the 12th constellation of the zodiac, so Pisces. So we're looking at a Pisces or a Meena rising chart here. Pisces is a dual water sign, or Dusvabhavajal. So dual, again, if you don't know what dual water sign means, you can look at, I have a video on, constellation categories. So you can learn all about dual and movable and fixed signs and all that kind of stuff. But dual water sign, very simply, dual means that people are going to go back and forth. And water is an emotional energy. So this is somebody who's going to waver in their emotions. Don't know how they feel, and we'll see in this chart that they may not know exactly what to do either, but for different reasons, not because it's a dual water sign. Okay, so just know that that's the background for this. Like again, if this was a person, somebody who wavers in their very emotional, but wavers in their emotions. Okay, so we do have Rahu and Revati in the Lugna. Rahu again is a north node of the moon. It indicates things like ambition as well as just hidden unexpected events. And so again, this is indicating that there's still even more so, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? There's still this even more uncertainty involved here through this time of transition. But the thing with Rahu in the Lugna here is that there's a drive to establish the self during this time of transition and change. Okay. Also, Rahu can indicate things like foreigners or of unusual people, outsiders. So sometimes when somebody has Rahu or Ketu in the Lugna, they may feel like an outsider. They may actually be a foreigner, like maybe they've immigrated to another country. But again, there's this hiddenness or murky transformation process going on here. But there is an effort to move into calmer waters, is what I'm saying, because Rahu is in Revati nakshatra. Revati represents travel and hospitality, so it's a fairly gentle nakshatra. And that's what I'm seeing here is like, how is this person leading themselves first through all of this change and challenge? And actually not only just go through this moment in time, but how are they actually going to transform in the long term? Yeah. Because this moment in time is just kind of bringing to surface, issues that have been, I think, fairly chronic for this person, but again, also family, the ancestors. Okay, so it's potentially a time for healing. And this person again with Rahu and Revati, they're trying to make an effort to be kind and hospitable and supportive, despite I think the relationship challenges that are going on here, which we'll get into. So again, self-development, a big effort towards self-development, but unsure of feelings like how do we feel about all this, because the ground is shifting beneath them. Okay, the Lugnatia, or the ruling planet for the chart, is Jupiter. Jupiter rules Pisces, and Jupiter is gone to the second house. It's in Bharani nakshatra. Bharani is represented by a womb. So cycles of life and death, birth and death. So we get more of that energy. And Jupiter again is like Santa Claus. It's the great benefic, and it's gone to the second house. The second house represents things like family and inner circle. So also material wealth. It's artistana. So it's a material, so this at this moment of time, the things that somebody's worried about or concerned about are material things. But you can see Jupiter here in the second house. It's aspected by Saturn, this massive Saturn in Satabhisha, and Saturn is debilitated in Aries, where Jupiter is. So there's a lot of instability. Again, the ground shifting, swaying below, but it's also aspected by Mars, which is exalted. And Mars is aspecting in Aries, its own sign. So there's going to be strength here, but there's going to be innovation. And kind of when you have Saturn and Mars together, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of like engineering, construction type energy. And Saturn and Mars are also bhumi karakas. So karaka is a symbol, a planet that symbolizes things. And bhumi is like earth property. So this person's really trying to, again, if this is a person really trying to establish, um, new ground, especially with potentially finances. But again, Mars in here is the yogi graha for the chart. The yogi graha is the planet that most symbolizes wealth. Can it be an indicator for wealth? And Mars is exalted in the 11th house. And the 11th house is related to income. So income's probably pretty good for this person, generally speaking. And Mars is aspecting into Aries, its own house, in the second house, which is about savings and movable assets. So I don't think their main, with Mars being that strong in both the second house and the 11th house, I don't think the issues are really primarily about money. There might be issues with money because we do have this planetary war going on with Mars, or we just got off of that with Mars. But I think overall, money should be pretty good for this person. The thing, though, is that the income that's generated here, you can see the 11th house uh, is Capricorn. The Lord of Capricorn is the Saturn. So you can see Saturn is the Lord of the 11th house. So all this income that's coming in, it looks like it's like going down the drain because Saturn has gone to the 12th house of losses and expenditures, or possibly like overseas investments. That could be the 12th house as well. But there's difficulties here, even if that's the case. Okay, so again, I'm not seeing this primarily as being a problem with money, but we'll get into the amshas, the subzodiac divisional charts as well to verify that. And Mars, this exalted Mars, it's in Shravana. So Shravana is about oral traditions, yeah, longstanding oral traditions and education. So you can see that there's and Jupiter is a planet that represents oration. So, and the second house represents oral speech. So I think with this, again, if this is a person, that what they're trying to do because again, we're in the current period of Saturn and Jupiter. So Saturn and Jupiter are very active right now. This person's trying to kind of reconstruct or regenerate the way that they speak to themselves and others. Um, and that could be just like positive, that could be something like positive affirmations, but it's just like, how do you motivate yourself and support yourself verbally, like even the internal speech, like how do you talk to yourself on a daily basis, right? And it's not just, I'm good or I'm bad or I'm good at this or not good at this, but it's just like, do you generally have a positive mindset? Are you generally looking for solutions or are you always like focused on the problems? It's kind of like I had this friend who was a professional mountain bike rider, and he said, well, he loves mountain biking, going off all the stones and the branches and all this kind of stuff. I don't particularly like mountain bike riding. I just feel like I'm getting jostled around. I prefer smoother ride, like road cycling. But anyway, he says for mountain bike riders, in order to be a mountain bike rider, you have to be somebody, at least this is his point of view. It's like you have to be somebody who's like looking for the smoothness within the ruts. Yeah. I mean, some people just get off on bouncing around, I guess, but but he was saying, especially if you're a professional and if you're trying to go fast through all these like crevices and crannies and rocks and divots in the road or the path, that you have to really hyper focus on the smooth parts to get through it. So, again, that's a very important mindset, not just in mountain bike riding, but in life. Yeah. So I think that's what this person, again, if this was a person, is trying to do, because there are challenges here, and rather than focus on the challenges and let the challenges sink this person, they're trying to shift things within the conversation, shift the conversation. Okay, so let me just see my notes here. So yeah, generating, constructing new material life. So there are some material things going on. But again, I don't think that's the main issue here, and we'll get into more of that. Transformative speech, also declaring a new identity, because the Saturn and Mars construction energy that they bring to the second house, the Jupiter is the Lugnatia. So it's not just about speech, but it's really about the whole identity, which gets back to the Revati and the Purva Drapada of like, this is transformational for this person and the whole chart. This could also be because the second house represents food. It could also be somebody who's eating irritating foods and maybe overeating, because the Jupiter is also aspecting the sixth house of kind of the mid gut digestive process. And we have all these malefic planets on the sixth house. We also have Mars, even though it's exalted in the 11th house, it's aspecting the fifth house of the upper GI where it's debilitated. So it looks like again, if this person's having like pretty serious digestive issues, and based on this, I would guess with Jupiter here, that can be a planet of excess, and also like kind of fatty foods, kind of rich fatty foods. Um, and then Saturn and Mars are tamasic planets, so this could be processed foods. This could be leftovers. So it could be that this person's doing a lot of, and then all these planets are aspecting the moon. So the emotion. So this person, like again, if this is a person, they might be doing a lot of emotional eating, overdoing the chips and the ice cream and that sort of thing, is what I'm seeing here, which is causing which is physically causing indigestion. But I think just this person with all these planets in the sixth house, and again, if you don't know about the sixth house, that was the last house I covered when I for my houses playlist. Is the sixth house is also about just digesting the events of life, and so I think this person is having problems with that as well. So let's see. But, again, money should be good, generally speaking, for this person, even if this time there might be a little bit of a challenge. I mentioned it's a Saturn dominated chart. Because Jupiter and Moon are the only planets on one side of the Rahu Ketu axis, you could consider this to have a Kala Sarpa ish yoga type pattern. So that would just kind of amplify this kind of quirkiness of this person, um, or kind of unusualness of this person in this moment of time, also the ambition. The other thing to note in this chart, which may not be apparent at first glance, is Venus is a triple Chitra graha for this chart. So Venus, generally speaking, is also a benefic. It's right behind Jupiter. Venus is always a benefic. It doesn't change. It brings things like compassion and beauty and art and higher living type things. But it's a triple Chitra graha. Venus can also represent like loved ones, um, pets, relationships, because it's sort of the sociable planet. But a graha is a planet. That's a planet in Sanskrit. Chitra is like a kind of a piercing quality or vulnerability point. So Venus is a triple Chitra graha. That means that this person, again, if it was a person, is relationships, I would say, are a vulnerable point for this person. And that kind of, again, if we consider that this person is, again, a dual water sign, a very emotional person, and they have so far a fairly gentle nature here with Rahu and Revati, that this person may be a little bit passive or unsure of how to deal with relationships because they're an emotional person. And it seems like they do, they're a fairly caring person. So I think that's really the crux of the challenges here, as we'll see, and we keep going through. But the other thing to note is, like, for example, the third house here is ruled by Venus, and the third house represents things like siblings. So it could be that like sibling issues are strong, even though again there's no planets pointing at the third house or in the third house. But because Venus is a triple Chitragraha, I would imagine this person has issues with siblings. Okay, the other thing is that Venus is the lord of the eighth house of deep psychology. And you can see the only planet aspecting the eighth house is Jupiter, which is the great benefic. So, and and that sign in the eighth house is, or the constellation in the eighth house is Libra or Tula. So, which can represent relationships and balance, but balance typically in the way of like actually business more than like justice as it is in as it's kind of represents in Western astrology. So I would think that generally speaking, this person is very high-minded, deep within, because the only planets related to the eighth house are Venus and Jupiter. But again, Venus is a triple Chitragraha. So I would think that this person worries a lot about relationships and people. May even have a bit of social anxiety. Yeah. And also the moon. So Venus is a triple Chidra. The moon is also a Chidra Graha. And moon represents, again, like relationships, public feelings. So it's almost like the person can get on emotional overload when they're challenged. That's what I would think. All right, so we pretty much already went through the first and second houses. So I started talking about the third house. Again, the third house lord is Venus. It's in Shravana as well, just like Mars. So this might be somebody who's like hearing from supporters. This could also be, again, because Venus is in a planetary with Mars and Mars represents siblings. It could be that there's a recent argument with siblings. Yeah. The reason why I said supporters is that like you do have the 11th house is Mars exalted with Venus. So there could be like communication about that, like maybe people texting or emailing or something like that, support for this person. But then, again, I think that's mixed in here with arguments. So there are people supporting this person, whoever this chart is, if it was a person. But it's kind of they're supporting them after some stuff has gone down. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Then the fourth house here, the fourth house lord is Venus, or sorry, Mercury. Mercury's combust, and it's in the 12th house. So Mercury's kind of toast at the moment. So this is Mercury represents the rational mind, decision making, business, friends, communication. And in this chart, Mercury is the lord of the fourth house, which represents home, mother, house, vehicles, lineage. So again, we're getting more of this lineage thing, energy that's popping up here. The other thing is that Mercury's the lord of the seventh house, spouse, business partners, and business spouses. Yeah, and independent business. Yeah. So, trouble, yeah. And also the fourth house represents education and general happiness. So not a, again, this is not a time for sunshine and unicorns, right? And Mercury's also in Satabhisha, so things that are difficult to heal or even recognize. And because Mercury and Saturn are both combust, and you can see this blue circle here, we have Saturn, Sun, Mercury. These three planets all represent different parts of the nervous system. So Sun is the central nervous system, Mercury is the peripheral nervous system, and then Saturn is the neuromuscular junction. So when I see all these planets in Satabhisha, it's just a lot of pain. And then all these planets are aspecting the moon, so a lot of mental, emotional pain, if not physical pain. And with all this stuff going on, you can understand why. Okay, so then the fifth house lord is Moon, which is full, which is nice, but it's gone to the sixth house of acute issues, troubles. It's aspected by Venus and Mars, but Mars is debilitated here. So, again, if this is a person and the fifth house represents intellect, I would think that this is somebody who can get confused fairly easily and may not always think clearly and may be getting bad advice, frankly, because Venus is the worldly advisor here. The other thing is the fifth house represents the upper GI, so digestion, especially like stomach area. So they might be feeling, especially with Mars. Mars is a Pitta fire planet. They might be feeling nauseous even. Um, yeah. And the fifth house also represents children. So there might be issues there as well. Um, Although I didn't think that was a major thing, but maybe. We'll get into more of that with the uh, amsa, the subdivisional chart analysis. So they might be getting strong advice, but it might be misdirecting them. And again, inflammation in the upper GI. And the sixth house, I've basically been talking about this, but just to go through it. So the sixth lord is Sun. And luckily, Sun, in a way, is aspecting the sixth house, so into its own house. So that gives some protection for non-living things, but it won't necessarily protect people that are represented by the house or medical issues necessarily. It might improve them, but it won't like save them necessarily. And then again, the moon's aspected by a compass, Saturn, Mercury, and exalted Mars. So all these negative planets and Jupiter too um, are on the moon. So definitely issues with digestion, overeating, and just going through digestion experiences, pain, inflammation, mental, emotional stress because the two planets representing the mind are here. Also, loss of fluids potentially. So it might even be like like vomiting. Sorry, not to get too detailed here. Don't want to go down that road. But the sixth house here is also the house of enemies. So look at all these planets. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 9 planets are involved with the sixth house. So I think this person's having issues with figure out who's a friend and who's an enemy, or they may feel like it's not totally experiencing, people ganging up on them. And again, Saturn and Mercury, you won't necessarily see those people, but Saturn represents employees. Mercury represents friends. So, and since they're in the 12th house, this would be loss of friends through business. Also, because Mercury is the lord of the 7th house of independent business. If this person has an independent business, then there's losses here. potentially with employees is what I'm seeing. There could also be issues with authority. So the sun is there, sun is strong, but the sun can represent things like father, authorities, government, and again, ancestors here. So again, I think this acute issue challenge is bringing to light not only the trouble or the discomfort at this particular moment but of how this is kind of a chronic thing that the whole family line has experienced. Okay, so a lot of enemies, both obvious and hidden, because the sixth house is obvious, kind of overt enemies, and the 12th house is hidden enemies. And also Saturn and Mercury are combust, so you can't see them. So you won't see the enemies that are represented by Saturn and Mercury. So there's a lot of hidden tumult, actually. The other thing is the sixth house represents disruptions and routine. So that I think is also key here, because I think what's going to help this person, and I think what they're trying to establish here, because Jupiter's, trying to bring in some positive energy to the sixth house, is how do we establish better routines to support ourselves through challenging times? Okay, so now I'm going to get a little bit medical, but so in Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, when there's a lot of change going on, it can increase vata. Vata is kind of, you can think of it as a wind energy. And so when change happens, people can become more vata-like or wind-like, because again, the wind comes and goes. There's no steadiness, there's no groundedness. It's cold, it's dry. In the mind, it can create anxiety, doubt, suspicion, fear. In the body, it can create pain that comes and goes. It's hard to identify. Um, Things like constipation, things like sciatica, things like weakness, things like, again, anxiety, feelings of overwhelm. And so, with all these planets here, I mean, you have this massive Saturn. Saturn is a planet that represents Vata, and it's right on the moon. And it's, again, the kind of nest for, and, 5 planets here: Saturn itself, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and then it's aspecting Jupiter and Moon. There's a lot of Vata in this chart. Besides, again, we have Purva Bhardrapada as the rising sign nakshatra, so transformation. Rahu, that's unknown, the unknown. So, and there's no groundedness here. So how does this person create groundedness when there's no external groundedness? And I think that's the kind of golden nugget that Jyotish can offer for somebody who's experiencing something like this. So if this person can establish new routines, which I think that they may be attempting to do, because Saturn and Mars again are construction planets. So if you construct daily routines, because how does this get back to the Vata idea? So you can't control the wind, right? The wind comes and goes. That's the nature of the wind. But what you can do to decrease Vata in yourself medically, both mind and emotions and physically, like that, just feeling ungrounded and scattered and overwhelmed, and mind is racing and all these. This is all Vata. The first place we start to shift Vata for somebody is that we start to create daily routines for somebody. So maybe creating a morning routine, like getting up at the same time of the day, eating breakfast at the same time of the day, having a fairly simple, easily but nutritious, easily to digest nutritious breakfast that's going to be supporting, rather than like a grab and go. Like when I do my medical work, I can usually, the first thing I ask people is what they've eaten in the last 24 hours. And when they tell me what they've eaten, I can usually guess what they're going to tell me their problems are. So my Vata people, they eat, they're a grab and go style. They don't sit down to eat. They don't take time to cook because they're moving like the wind, always moving. Yeah. So if you can start to get them to sit down even for 5 minutes to eat something, and because the wind is cold and dry, they do a lot better if they start eating warm, moist food. So instead of a toast with coffee and sugar, because the coffee is going to push them, right? You've got a caffeine push. Your sugar is going to go up and down because it's all carbs between the toast and the sugar. And then there's acid from the coffee, so that's going to increase. That's going to push the Vata people even more when what they need to do is kind of take it down a notch and ground themselves and move through life more steadily. And then the toast is like all carbs too, plus it's cold and dry. Well, it's warm for like a minute, and then after a minute, it's cold and dry, right? So that's going to dry them out even more. So that's like that kind of breakfast is good. It's going to stress out and provoke more vata in people. But if they sit down and they have like an omelet, saute a few vegetables, crack a couple eggs. And again, this is, generally speaking, is not like, medical advice because that may not be appropriate for everybody, but, or even something like oatmeal, something warm and moist and grounding, that they're typically better off. Vata people are typically better off. So that's what this chart is indicating to me is that, through all this vata whirlwind here, because it is a whirlwind, if somebody starts to develop these like daily habits of just having, it sets the tone of the day, especially if you start in the morning. Like, how do you set up a regular beneficial supportive routine in the morning, the first hour or two of your day? It usually sets the tone for the rest of the day. Like, do you do a little bit of yoga, a little bit of stretching, prayer, meditation, chanting a mantra, whatever? Start your day with that rather than, grabbing your phone, checking what everybody, scrolling through your phone, jumping on the internet, or, it's just already like you're scattering your energy as opposed to balancing it, grounding it, and moving forward, holding on to that hopefully through more of your day, if not all of your day. So that's what I'm seeing here for this moment in time. Okay, so this slide here, it's pretty much the same as the previous slide. All the stuff on the left is the same. Stuff on the right is different because we're going through the different houses. So if we pick up at the seventh house here, I've already mentioned a little bit. The seventh house lord is this Mercury combust, which is a malefic because it's with all these other malefics. But it's toast, really. I mean, combust, it's in the 12th house. Although the thing is, with Saturn being in its own sign in 12th house, that means that there's going to be some saving of losses and expenditures, but on the material plane, so non-living objects. Yeah. So especially with the money, I mentioned the money already being good. I don't think this can be some loss of material things, but I don't think that's the main issue here. Okay. So again, the seventh house represents things like spouse like partner, business partners, independent business. K2 is in the nakshatra of Chitra, so structure. So there's a structural change that's going on here in potentially these areas of life, maybe all of them, especially because this is a dual sign. So there's probably at least two stories going on here. But it's ruled by Virgo, and Virgo is a dual earth sign. So it's kind of like, how do we choose? How do we find practical solutions here? Okay. But I would think with this combination, there's some loss or through structural change related to probably business partner, spouse. Okay. Let me see. It could just be like with partner, spouse. I wasn't, for some reason, and I think this is more intuitive, more than like actually looking at the chart. I don't think it's really a spouse issue. I think it's more of a general relationship issue, but the spouse, for example, might be traveling temporarily. The other thing is the spouse might be a little bit out of the picture because they're dealing with their own issues. Because if you spin the chart to the seventh house and make that the Lugna rising sign, then the lord of the chart would be Mercury, and Mercury's gone to the sixth house. So it looks like the spouse potentially is dealing with their own issues. They've got plenty on their plate as well. So they may just temporarily be out of the picture or not available. The other thing to know is that even though Mercury's over here at what 7 degrees, about 8 degrees here in Aquarius, Mercury's a fast-moving sign. So within I think about 10 days, Mercury's going to be in Pisces, and it will be debilitated there. But Mercury aspecting into Virgo, its own sign, it's going to bring strength back here. So again, I think whatever this separation is here, um, some of it's permanent because Saturn and Mercury are combust and toast, but strength will come back here. But I think the loss here is more about because Venus is the planet representing, symbolizing like a spouse, and it is supported here with this really strong exalted Mars, even though there might be some arguments, but I think the loss here is more about employees, is what I'm seeing here. They're trying to save the business. It looks like there's some stress on the business if there's a business here, and there's some loss of again employees and or friends, business associates is what I'm seeing here, or than spouse. Um, we'll see. Okay. The business might be related to like online media stuff as well, because K2's here. K2 and Rahu can represent things like again an unconventional, anything unconventional, but also technology and the internet, TV, media, that sort of thing. Um, what else? It could also represent overseas property because again, K2 can represent like foreign things, and Mercury has gone to the 12th house of kind of foreign destinations. But again, it looks like if there is some overseas property, there's some difficulty right now. And just generally speaking, with Rahu and Ketu across the 1-7 axis here, that means that the relationship, if there is a spouse-like partner involved here, it's going to be kind of an unusual, unconventional relationship. That's what I take this to be. Um, but it looks like a love relationship, most likely, because you have Venus and Mars. That's a passion combination. Usually, when we see Venus and Mars in a chart, especially if, because Venus is the planet representing spouse or partner, but especially if, like the 1-7 axis is Aries, Libra, or Taurus, Scorpio, so that Venus and Mars are representing or ruling the first and seventh house, then that would most likely indicate love marriage. So it looks like, again, a kind of an unconventional but loving marriage, potentially, or relationship. And then the eighth house I've sort of talked about already. The Lord is Venus, which again is Chitra graha. So a lot of, even though this person is well-meaning and thinks positively on some level, there's still some pain and vulnerability in the deep psychology. So they may emanate things like compassion and goodness because, again, Jupiter and Venus are the planets related to the eighth house. But it might also be that it works against them. All this goodness works against them. Like maybe they're the kind of person where it's like, peace at all costs. So, for example, if there is a business issue and there's an employee issue, this might be somebody who has a hard time letting people go, either because the person is not doing the job or maybe they're hurting the business in some way. You do get that. But maybe it's just, the reality is the business is losing money, and the only way for the business to survive is that you do need to let people go, to save money or save costs or whatever. So it may be that this person's emotional, again, getting back to the emotional nature here, um, this person, it's almost like opposites here, like this rising sign, dual nature, emotional energy with this like just time to let them go energy in the seventh house. It's like opposites attract here. And that's, I think, what may be causing issues for this person because I don't think they want to hurt anybody and they don't want to make enemies. That's not the nature of this person here. Um, but sometimes they have to do it for practical reasons. And the other thing is that sometimes that's just the karma of somebody. Like maybe you're actually doing them a favor. You never know. Letting this person go. Maybe they find a better job, or if they end up moving to another town where they meet somebody important, or, you don't know the whole, maintaining things at all costs is not always actually the best way to go. Even if there's like, an initial kind of gain, or disappointment or something, maybe in the long term, everybody's better off. So, um, then the ninth house here, this exalted Mars is the Lord. It's also aspected by Saturn. So I would see this as difficulty with authority. And because Mars just was in planetary war, again, that may be part of what's going on here, is that Saturn could represent, employees and servants. And so there could be a mashup here between authority, which this person might be, being the boss, and employees or workers. Then the 10th house here, the Lord is Jupiter, and Jupiter's aspecting here. So this should be pretty good. And I would think with Jupiter aspecting its own sign of a Sagittarius and Jupiter's being in Bharani, I would think that if this person had a day job, it would be related to children, childbirth, education. So maybe this person actually takes care of children or their own children during the day, and then they have kind of a side hustle here where they need to like restructure things, and including the payroll. Yeah, payroll. And let's see, then the 11th house I've talked about pretty much already. The 11th house Lord is Saturn. It's gone to the 12th house of losses and expenditures. Can join Venus and Mars, who just went through planetary war. So again, a fairly passionate couple here. And also enthusiasm for building wealth. Socializing, income being strong, Venus, I mentioned, tripled Chitra. But I could see this also since there was just a planetary war in the 11th house. The 11th house can represent things like clubs, groups, societies. So this could have been falling out with a friend, or a work colleague, but also like a shift in communication, because then the Mars is aspecting the second house. And because then Jupiter's aspecting the eighth house of deep psychology. Like whatever happened here, whatever the situation was, it's getting somebody to think on a deep level about things generally. Yeah, and again, this fight, because it's more of a public. The 11th house is kind of more public facing side of things. Again, this could also be a sibling, because Mars represents siblings. And it could be a very strong sibling here because Mars is exalted. But then you have this whole Chitra of Venus there, which again, if that's this person's deep psychology, this person might back down if people kind of are more assertive or forceful rather than fight back, frankly, or tell somebody to, chill out. I'm not sure this person is kind of I think I would think that this person's gonna be kind of more aggressive and internalize the stress rather than, I don't think it's gonna be easy for this person to set boundaries, healthy boundaries with people, is what I'm saying here. And that's part of the major problem here, but also I think that this person's also realizing that, this is a problem in the family. Like, because usually this sort of dynamic, you end up with people in the family, and it might just be one or two who are like super aggressive and kind of harangue the more passive people who just sort of tiptoe around because they're more conflict averse. And that may be changing. And that's probably what's changing for this person. Yeah, so I could see, and the other thing is with this 11th house like this, besides maybe a public fight with sibling or falling out with us. I think generally like this person might be reconsidering like how are they choosing the people in their life? Because with this 11th house here, they're going to choose people who are it's like they're choosing people who are kind of assertive, aggressive, and not necessarily all negative, but it looks like they're kind of surrounding themselves socially with fairly dominant people. And then it's going to enhance, they're probably going to get more passive, and it may be like, the social circle may be practical, and it may make a lot of sense on paper, but I don't know how emotionally fulfilling it would be. based on this, because again, Venus is um, dominated by this massive exalted Mars, and Venus is a triple Chitra graha. So I think this person might also be rethinking their choices and who they're choosing to associate with. Okay. So then the 12th house here, I mentioned a bunch of times. So the 12th house lord, the Swa massive Saturn and Satabhisha, but it's combust. So again, you might not be seeing losses here, and there is protection against losses, but with Sun and Mercury, all in Satabhisha, aspected by the moon. So a lot of unseen loss and pain. Again, I think this person's internalizing it, and that's why it's like upsetting their digestion, probably their sleep as well. They may also be having problems with the left eye specifically, because the 12th house represents the left eye. But just feeling fatigued and loss of vitality, this is all draining for this person, this situation. And again, high vata here. But again, some protection with the difficulties, which could be business, property, health. So even if some employees are lost, for example, if there's an independent business, I don't think the whole business is going to be lost, because Mercury, again, within about 10 days is going to come back and support the um, seventh house. But again, we are moving from this K2 Saturn Jupiter Mahadasha to K2 Mercury. So, and that may be again, the new mindset is it's like more about editing, right? Because sometimes people are so conflict averse that they'll just like make friends with anybody. And that's like, that's nice, they're egalitarian, that's cool. But then it can at times, if they have a hard time saying no or setting boundaries, then people are just going to take up their time and energy, and there's going to be nothing left for them. So with all of this in the 12th house, what I was seeing is that actually, if there is a loss, like of a friend or a worker or something like that, that actually this person was more of an enemy rather than a friend in the long run. It's just that the deep psychology of this person is, they don't like to hurt anybody, they don't like conflict, that sort of thing. So, all right, so let's look at the subzodiacs now. So again, relationships. So we're going to go through that first, and you'll see that there's issues. Yeah. So looking here at the Navamsha D9, which represents spouse and general energy for the natal chart, and then the Draken energy D3 for siblings. So at the top here is the spouse subchart. And I put up here the Dasha sequence as well, because the planets that I circled here are the planets that are kind of sort of a primary active planets, or kind of more influential planets during their planetary period. So again, we're moving from K2 Saturn Jupiter to K2 Mercury on 13th of April. Okay, so in this Navamsha here, D9 for spouse, Saturn and Mercury are not well placed. Although Saturn is Swa, so there's protection here. And you also have Jupiter aspecting on Saturn, so there's some support, I think, some goodness here. And again, this is kind of like a subchart for the spouse. You can also see that Moon is Swa in its own sign in um, Cancer here. So I think this person, like, again, if we're looking at spouse here, even though in the main chart it looked like maybe the person was really kind of detached, um, uh, they're actually like a emotional person. I think that they may be more kind of have potentially an easier time detaching, because they know that if they don't detach, it's going to be draining for them. So they may actually be a fairly good example or mentor or advisor for the Pisces person, which is also interesting here because Mars aspecting into the fifth house here. This is going to be somebody who's a very good transformative advisor. And also in the natal chart, right? Because the 11th house is going to be the fifth house of the spouse or spouse like partner, and Mars was exalted. So I think, the spouse is probably more adept at being able to, cut their losses, move on, let go. Not that they like it either, but I think that they just realize that they're worse off if they don't do it at some point. Like, you just gotta call a spade and call it a day. Um, So luckily though, K2 is the main Mahadasha here, the main planetary period. That's well placed. But I can see that Mercury here, there can be problems with decision making. And again, K2 and Jupiter are in the second house of like family. So again, reconstructing family communications, but there's some instability here. Saturn is Swa, and there's also a Swa Rahu. So I think this again, spouse-like partner is has a very independent and unusual mindset that's actually fairly helpful. Uh, and a deeply transformative person. So I think this person has had their own share of troubles or difficulties in life, but their mindset, I think, is a little bit stronger, despite them also being an emotional person. Like they're able to, I think, again, know when to hold them and know when to fold them, know when to walk away, like that Kenny Rogers song. Because they've been through it enough. It's like, I've had enough, or I can't continue with this. It's just draining me too much. Yeah, so again, with the Swan Moon and the Lugna, it's going to be an intuitive, nurturing person deep down, even if, again, in the natal chart, um, they looked pretty attached, or very practical, that sort of thing. Well, they're going to be more practical than the Pisces person, that's for sure. The fifth house I mentioned, yeah. Uh, what else? Mercury, and again, Mercury's in the success. So this is something to watch too as we go through the amshas. Mercury's the one, the planet that seems to be the most challenged through all these amshas. You'll see it. So I think that their Mercury, because they have Mars here, and this time Mars, instead of it being a Mars-dominated Venus, we have a Venus-dominated Mars. So I think this person is actually compassionate. Um, it's just that, again, they're able to draw a line better than the Pisces person. You also have Jupiter here. So I think that this person is better able to digest difficulties and work through them. I think they're fairly high-minded and fair in their decision making, and they also learn through conflict pretty well. So again, I think this person has been through it themselves, but it's just from what they've learned in life that they're like, this is going to be worse if I don't, call it quits, in some situations. Again, not necessarily with this relationship, but in certain situations. And there may be more of that coming because we're moving into K2 Mercury. There may be more of this difficult decision making or learning process through conflict coming up for this spouse-like partner. Then the D3 siblings. So you can see here, this is pretty challenged. First of all, we have a Vargotama Lugna. So Vargotama means that's the same placement as the natal chart in the subchart. So we have the same Lugna. So it's Pisces again here. And that's an indicator that this is an important chart. And you can see that K2, Jupiter, Mercury are all negatively placed. And on top of that, Saturn is aspecting the Lugna. So a lot of challenges with sibling, I think, chronically, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatively placed planets, and then Saturn aspecting the Lugna. Saturn is also aspecting the moon, so mental emotional issues. The other thing is this chart has Mars as a karako bhava nasha in the third house. So Mars in the third house brings issues with siblings. So I think there's chronic issues with siblings, which is, again, what I was detecting in the natal chart. And Mars and K2 in the third house. This is somebody who's going to be fairly explosive and separatist. So I think, it could be siblings get into fights and or are estranged if it gets that bad. The other thing is that it looks like the sibling is fairly religious, because you have Mars aspecting the ninth house here where it's going to be Swa, and you also have Rahu there. So I think this person, the sibling, is very motivated to be involved in religion and or authority. Like maybe they just need to, be a super controller person, although I don't think that they are particularly, um, um, how do I say, stable. So, that always causes trouble, right? When somebody wants to be in charge, but they're not bringing a lot of stability to the situation or other people. But I think because the third house here also represents the sibling of the sibling, which goes back to the native, and you can see that this K2 and Mars are swimming in a nest of Venus. So again, that gets back to the natal person of, I think that their MO generally, not only with their sibling, but in life is to try to contain damage and, be sweet and comforting and this and that, rather than say, call people out on their crap, really, on their stuff, and just say, I've had enough of this. You need to grow up, or, sit down, or take a step back, or whatever. It could be a little bit of an enabling thing going on here. Um, so yeah, the native is, I think, trying to contain the damage created by the sibling, but I think the sibling that's sort of their nature. Yeah. To kind of overpower other people. And let's see. And we have Mars, Saturn. Oh, aspecting Jupiter. And Mars and Saturn are also aspecting Moon. So I think this person, again, the sibling, is probably pretty set in their philosophies and mindset. So it's going to be really hard. I'm not sure this sibling is interested in transformation, unlike the native. So, it's kind of like their way or the highway is what I'm seeing here. Mercury is also in the 12th house. So again, Mercury, again, not well placed. And we'll see that pretty consistently through the amshas. Usually it's the Mercury that's not well placed. So Mercury is challenging, decisions challenging, logic being challenged here. This business, friendships. Yeah. So Mercury in the 12th house here, there might be a conscious decision to remain distance, or at least loss of communication, not talk, no contact, that sort of thing. So yeah, trouble with siblings for sure. Then more, just in case, just to be thorough here. So I looked at children, the Saptamsha D7, and parents, grandparents, the Dwadashamsha D12, because again, you have this combust Mercury for the fourth house of family and mom. You had a combust Mercury gone to the 12th house. And then the fifth house was challenged because you have this massive Mars aspecting and being debilitated in the fifth house representing children. So let's just take a look. So children, there is something there because K2 is not well placed. And again, K2 being a separatist planet in the 12th house of loss and kind of foreign places. I was kind of getting teenager energy from this. So it might be that this is a teenager who's like becoming more independent and spending, more time with their friends and not so close with the parents, if kids are involved. The thing though, I think there are positive things here. So, Jupiter's well placed, it's exalted. And Mercury's debilitated, but Mercury's aspecting the lugna of its own sign. So from that, I get a sense that, if children are involved, they have a strong sense of self and they're fairly grounded here. The other thing is that the second house here, you have Venus, Swa with Moon and Mars. That's actually pretty nice. I think this person, again, if part of what the native is trying to do is change the conversation, generational conversation about how to deal with maybe family conflict or, um, uh, setting boundaries with people. It looks like this children are doing pretty well here because they're compassionate, but there's also like leadership here because not only do you have Venus and Moon, so the two social planets, but Mars is there. That's leadership, and then you have Sun aspecting here, which is also leadership. So I think the children are learning through the parents as mentors how to use emotions and voice to ameliorate relationships, lead themselves through life. Also, I think that's a fairly winning attitude because this Venus, Moon, Mars, Sun combination is also in the eighth house of deep psychology. So I think that's all fairly positive, actually. Um, and I think because Mercury is strong when it aspects the Lugna, you have exalted Jupiter aspecting its own sign in the seventh house of Pisces. I think the children would potentially be interested in like education, speaking, writing, media. There's also well, actually no. But I think that this person, again, if children, I think that they're going to be fairly well known because they do have this ability to lead through positive emotions and sociability, popular, social, entrepreneurial, because of the first house, seventh house, 11th house. Uh, Jupiter's exalted, and the other thing is that Mercury is nicha bhanga because Jupiter is aspecting its own sign, so that's going to bring up the debilitation of Mercury, although it doesn't get rid of it completely. So I thought this is actually fairly good. I just think that the children might be either slightly out of the picture, but because K2's the Mahadasha here, I think it's just the children are individuating and differentiating a little bit. But I think the children are doing okay for the most part. Um, then the Dwadashamsha, so this is fairly challenging here. K2 is not well placed. And you can see here that K2 and Mars are back in the third house again of siblings. So that's where I was also getting like I was getting like ancestral karma and stuff like that. And here again, it looks like parents and grandparents would not, were also potentially estranged from their siblings and also grandparents because you have Sun, K2, Mars, Rahu, Moon. So Sun is father, K2's parental grandparents, Mars' siblings, then Rahu's maternal grandparents, and Moon is mom. And you can see they're all on this axis on the 3-9 axis here. That's going to be a lot of strife with authority and siblings, mom, dad, grandparents. It's like, generation. This is like a generational thing. Um, so, I think that there's potentially some hope here. Jupiter does aspect the Lugna, so there might be some possible healing here. But like in the natal chart, you have Saturn aspecting Jupiter, and Saturn's exalted in Libra. So it's going to be a slow transformation change that's happening, if at all. What else? There's also a lot of like anger, I think, with siblings because you have Sun and Mars. Those are Pitta planets, fire planets, and Ketu. So it's almost like 3 fire planets in the third house. I mean, that's a lot of challenge and anger. Um, there is a Saraswati yoga here, so it may be that the family is kind of humanities based or, more into like arts rather than sciences, which would make sense sort of because, again, the native of the chart is a dual water sign, Pisces. But their partner seems like they're probably a little bit more scientific or engineering type person. Venus does have Digbala, so that's nice. But again, a lord of the ruler of Venus is Moon because it's in Cancer, and Cancer has all this. It's with Rahu, Sun, Mars. The Moon is very challenged. So again, ancestral stuff here related to socializing. Um, yeah, and then because the ground is unsteady for Venus, Venus is also the dispositor or the ruler for Mercury, which is the second house of family. So, and it's also the dispositor for Jupiter. So yeah, so there's stuff going on the family line for sure. And I think that's what this person is realizing and they're trying to deal with, not just again in the moment but for the long term. Okay, so then looking at more like work and education, Because again, the Lord of the 4th house education was at combust Mercury in the 12th house, and also, well, career, the D10 is more about the 10th house, which we had that SWA Jupiter. So you'll see, like, the Satabhisha here, D24 for education at the top, all planets are not well placed. So it's not surprising. When you have combust 4th house gone to the 12th house with all those malefics, it is a malefic. If there are attempts to, and the thing is that, look at the, I mean, this Satabhisha D24 is very challenged. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 9 planets are in negative houses. The other thing is that you have Mars in the 10th house aspecting the Lugna. That's going to bring a lot of erratic energy. So yeah, education is going to be very challenged again if this was a person. Constant disruptions. The other thing is that you have right now K2, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn are all on the 612 axis. So I think what I would see here is a lot of issues with like funding and loans and just financing of education. Um, maybe for self, maybe for children. You know, if maybe the children, besides being a teenager, maybe they're like a college student or something, so they're away from home, and then you got to come up with the, pay the bills to, take care of the kids or whatever, and their education. So it looks like there's a lot of stress and strife going on with education here. Yeah, this is going to be hard to ameliorate because, again, only 2 planets are positively placed, and they're not particularly strong. Venus is a little bit stronger because you have Moon in the 8th house, but it's with an exalted Sun. But Mars is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's got all this stuff. It's with all these malefics except Jupiter. Yeah, this is it's a lot of trouble with education, is what I'm saying here. The Shamsha, D10, career. Mercury's not well placed again. So again, you're seeing like consistently Mercury's a troublemaker here, or in trouble. And you can see we're moving into K2 Mercury period. That's also important because the thing is, like, I think the reason why a main chart is indicating um, like a lot of energy in the 6th house of habits and routines, getting back to this Vata idea, is that things are tough now. They may actually, you don't want to hear this, they may get a little bit tougher moving forward, but learning these things like creating daily habits the other reason why creating daily habits is important, not just from the Ayurvedic perspective of like, calming down Vata, this wind energy of like, which can create a lot of internal stress. But you can also think of it from a Western perspective of if you have daily habits and your body knows when it's going to eat and sleep and what it's going to eat, and that sort of thing, and how long it's going to sleep, it's less stress on the nervous system because otherwise you have to think and decide every moment, like you're adjusting every moment, and that's really stressful for the nervous system. As opposed to just being in a habit where you almost don't have to think about it anymore. It's like kind of like when people do that, what do they call it? Decision fatigue. Like some people like even what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg, right? The head of Facebook or something, right? He does this thing where he doesn't want to spend his mental energy thinking about what he wears, so he wears the same like hoodie and jeans every day. It's like one less thing to think about, one less thing to contemplate and spend time and energy on. So kind of like that. It's about kind of editing. Yeah. So anyway, so that's another reason why having certain routines and editing helps to calm down the nervous system when somebody's stressed out. So the thing is, if things are actually going to ramp up in a couple months, getting those routines in place will be a little bit of a buffer, and learning how to say no will be a little bit of a buffer because it looks like things are going to get a little bit more tangled up coming up soon. So they're important life skills, yeah. And that's again what all this is demonstrating. Then the career, career is looking pretty good. Mercury's not well placed, but Jupiter's there, Ketu's there, Saturn's there, all positively placed. The other thing is that Mars, we have Mars in the third house here. So we have a karako, bhava, nashaya again. Sibling issues. That's aspecting Mercury. We have Saturn here in the ninth house of authority. So again, making decisions is a bit challenging as far as career. But and I would think Mars, it's exalted in the third house and it's aspecting Aries. That's going to be a strong competitors, strong employees. Um, and Mars and Saturn, I would think like engineering or kind of a manual labor. So making decisions here is going to be important. And I think otherwise doing fairly well. But again, there's going to be more of this decision making. It's almost like you're going through grade 1, grade 2 now to set your routines in place and like start saying no and editing. And then you're actually going to go up a level, like grade 3 or 4, once you go into the Mercury period. So, yeah. But especially with Mars aspecting this sixth house, the trouble that's going to be brought by Mars and Saturn, it looks like there's going to be an easier time digesting the decisions that need to be made and making them from a less emotional place. Yeah, I think that's also important to have, a little bit not being completely detached. I don't think that's possible for a dual water sign, but to be a little bit more objective. Yeah, I think that's what's being called for here. Okay, so what else is going on here? Then I looked at the Ekadamsha D11 for income and the Chatratamsha D4 for assets because, just to be see what's going on here, especially because there's so many planets and the 12th house of loss and expenditures. So, look, these are important. They're both for Gautama Lagnas. So, income and assets, which again, with the 12th house, we would expect. KT Mercury not well placed in the first year of income. So again, there are challenges here. And again, K2's in the sixth house of employees. Mercury, the karaka for business, is in the 12th. So again, I do think that there's some losses here. Losses have started and there's going to be more losses here. But part of it is, at least overall, the positive points here. You do have Mars in its own sign in the ninth house of authority. You have Jupiter, Venus, Saturn here. So this is good. Take charge energy, and this Jupiter is aspecting the Lugna here. So that's going to be strength to the whole subchart here. So I think overall this is pretty good. The other things, you have Saturn aspecting the 11th house of income. So that's positive. And also with Mars being Swan, its own sign, the second house of savings is going to be strong. I just think that temporarily you're going through this person's going through a temporary difficult time with employees in accounting. Mercury can also represent accounting. So it's just showing me kind of the same stuff. You also have Saturn aspecting this sixth house of employees and that sort of thing. Help and K2 Rahu Saturn there. Again, this is more kind of manual labor, menial labor type positions. So I think the issue here is how are you going to balance profitability? So it's kind of the same thing in the natal chart. But again, overall strong. The other thing is Jupiter's aspecting the fifth house of counseling, where Jupiter's going to be exalted. So Jupiter's really helping out here. Mars is pretty good. I think it's again just about shifting the balance so that the balance sheets work. Um, yeah. Then the Chaturtamsha D4 assets. So again, you can see both of these two, like they're both Vargodama lugnas, but also Mercury's not well placed. Mercury going to get tougher. So, get ahead of it, get ahead of the curve, the wave that's coming. Okay, only K2 is well placed. So assets difficulty here. Saturn, let's see. Saturn does help support Jupiter because is exalted in Libra. It's going to support Jupiter a little bit. So there's some protection. Saturn's also aspecting the 12th house of loss. So kind of like in a natal chart, there's some protection of loss, at least material loss. Mercury's not well placed. And Saturn is on Mercury, so difficult decision making. Yeah, so again, acute worries, stress related to business and education. Um, so same thing. Again, the fourth lord and the seventh lord are Mercury, and Mercury again is not well placed. So yeah, there can be some challenges here. Luckily, though, K2 is the Mahadasha. At least K2 is well placed. And the thing is that Mercury and Jupiter, even though they're in negative houses, the third house and eighth house and the amshas indicate a time of change or endings. So both are either maybe going on. You'd have to kind of look at go back to the natal chart and kind of see how things are going to play out. But at least K2 is well placed. That's very helpful. There might be shuffling going on around here to again deal with balancing the sheets regarding educational expenses and what is it? Business expenses. Okay, then health, which again the main chart indicated health issues. You can see Mercury is not well placed in the D6 acute illness or the D27 strength. Again, problems with Mercury to be had coming up. So shelter in place, potentially, or go with the flow, you know, uh, depending on how you want to play it, I guess. So the top chart here is the Tajik Shashtamsha D6 for acute illness. Mercury's not well placed, but the other ones are, pretty good. The expositor is Venus. Venus has Digbala directional strength, so Venus, the Lugna is going to have some strength. And the other thing is that Venus is aspected by its dispositor Saturn, so there's going to be strength to this chart in terms of acute illness. Um, but you can see Mercury's in the eighth house of deep psychology. May get more stressful. More reason to create good routines and habits. Saturn also aspects the seventh house where it's debilitated. So again, it may bring some stress, even though generally speaking, as a baseline, this isn't bad. It could definitely be far worse, but there's still, just because it's Saturn aspecting a house where it's debilitated, there's going to be stress regarding independent business and relationships. The other thing is that there's two karako bhavanashas in this chart. So again, Mars in the third house, Sun in the ninth house. So problem with, competitors, enemies, authority, father, siblings, all the above. Which, again, we're seeing in the main chart. Then the Tajik Shtamsha D8, chronic illness. Luckily, all the planets are well placed here. So that's also, encouraging because despite the acute situation, overall, the person should do, pretty well. The thing though is there are challenges here. And you can see also that there's like one, two, like if we look at the Lugna, there's Jupiter, Venus, aspected by Sun, Moon, Mercury. That means that there's 5 planets in the Lugna. That also indicates that the Lugna is very important. And the thing though is that you can see in the 7th house here, we have Mercury and Moon. It's kind of like the natal chart. We have Mercury, Moon with Sun, Rahu, Ketu. So we have instability on the mind planets, Mercury, Moon, leadership, Jupiter and Venus, like the compassion, diplomatic planets. And then this Rahu, Sun, Mercury, Ketu, Moon complex here is aspected by Mars. And Saturn is the lord of the 7th house, and Saturn is debilitated. So you can see almost all these planets are on the 1-7 axis. So balancing self and others, boundaries, stress. Yeah. So again, even though they're well placed, there's still going to be issues. That the thing is, I think this person gets really stressed out by these issues, probably more than average, and that's the problem. One of the problems. So let's see, but this, yeah, I think I mentioned most of this. Yeah, so mental, emotional stress revolving around unknown, sudden losses of leading a business and relationships. Yep, so pretty much all the same stuff. Bombsha, D27 strength, the last chart here. Again, Virgotama Lagna, it's important. So that's another thing that's really kind of wild about this analysis is so far you have 4 out of the 11 amshas, which are Virgotama, same Lagna as the main chart. That's unusual. So that also means that all these different, parts of somebody's life are, active and kind of drawing their energy and attention. That's going to stress out the native. And again, we're moving to Mercury, and you could see Mercury, into a Mercury period. So things are probably going to get more stressful. Again, a reason to look at current habits and how we can get ahead of that. Only Mercury's not well placed in the D27. So again, Mercury, out of the 11 amshas so far, 8 of the 11, Mercury's the one that's not well placed. So looks like this K2 Mercury period is going to be tough, a little bit tough. Saturn is on Mercury, more stress for the nervous system and the mind. Mars, this one aspect to 9B. Luckily here, the 6th house is stronger because Sun is Swa. You have Mars here, Venus here. So that's kind of nice. The Mars-Venus balance is like, when do you, it's like, when do you cut your losses and when do you like give people a second chance? That kind of stuff. That's good. That's more balanced than the main chart. Just, might take some practice. And then Saturn, aspect what right here. Mars is father as 9th house. Yeah, so again, I think that we're seeing again there's strength from building routines here. And there may be difficulties, again, there may be difficulties setting routines, but it's helpful because you do have Saturn on the 6th house and the D27. That's going to bring difficulties and delays. But the Saturn-Mars combination is like reconstructing the, habits. You also have Venus there, so the triple Chitra graha. So I think overall, what's going to help support relationships is actually to ground oneself in their daily habits so that they're just not on edge all the time and frazzled, because that's the nature of the native, the main chart, and that should help take some of this emotional static off the line for people, for the person to make clear decisions. But yeah, there should be some protection here with creating routines to decrease vata when. Then spirituality. Okay, so only Jupiter is not well placed. Luckily, Mercury. So luckily, in the spirituality religion chart subcharts, Mercury is well placed. So that's already telling me, since Mercury is not well placed in all those other amshas, making sure that part of your daily practice is like a spiritual religious practice looks like it's going to be helpful. So Jupiter's not well placed, but Jupiter is kind of a blip right now. Luckily, K2, Saturn, Mercury, those are the main planetary periods, and those are, well placed. Um, let's see. Mercury in ninth house conjoined Sun, aspected by. Oh, okay. And that's the thing is, like this ninth house and the first chart here, the D5 innate spirituality is fairly strong. You have Moon aspecting its own house, and the Moon in its own that's like going to be like home, you know. And Sun is there, so there's a karako bhava. Like, there's so many in this analysis. It's amazing. It's a lot. Mercury here, it's kind of like there may be issues with authority, and that may be part of why um, somebody's interested in doing their own thing, like kind of being spiritual but not religious. Um, but the thing is that there's still something here about satsang. So satsang is spiritual community because again, um, you have this moon aspecting its own house in the ninth house. Um, and the ninth house can represent authority and father and guru, but also a spiritual community. So even if you don't go to church or temple or, mosque or whatever it is, finding some sort of spiritual community looks like it would be helpful um, to support, the native. The other thing is that this, sort of emotional energy of moon in its own sign of Cancer, we have Mercury there, and Mercury is the lord of the 11th house of just socializing generally, secular socializing. So I think finding some people to talk to and share spiritual support with would be helpful. Because also, like the fifth house here, you can see there's Venus, or not exalted in Pisces. So that's good counsel. So I think that, just rather than just being on your own, even if you find your own unique groups of social support and spiritual community, should be helpful in just feeling nurtured. Because again, this is an emotional person. So the ninth house here is strong, and the fifth house here is strong. And I could see too where also Rahu is strong. It's Swa. We don't use Rahu Swa in the amshas. Like, um, how do you even bring spirituality into your home? Like maybe it's putting up certain pictures or symbols or something like that as like, kind of spiritualizing your space, like maybe even doing some like feng shui or vastu shastra, like, getting good energy alignment in your home. That might be helpful here as a way of bringing spirituality more into life and supporting the native. And then the last chart here is the Vimshamsha D20 for worship. This is more kind of structured worship, like a more formal religion. You can see here K2, Jupiter not well placed. So K2 is the Mahadasha. Uh, well, let's see. But K2 is exalted, so that's, helpful. Expositors, Mars is exalted. So there is some strength here for transformation with this K2 energy. So I think it might be if somebody's walked away from more formal structures of religion or spirituality, it might not be a bad idea to rethink that and maybe not go back to the same one, potentially if it was not good, but maybe find some others rather than give up on the whole idea. Uh, but it looks like there's a time for change because, again, K2 exalted in the third house, that's change. So, um, slowly but surely finding one way to more support, I think, is helpful. The other thing here is the Lugnatia, the lord of the chart is Mercury. And Mercury has gone to the ninth house of, satsang, spiritual community. The other thing is Mars is exalted in the fifth house. So even though there may be issues, with formal religion, or there has been in the past, again, it might be a good time to rethink that. The other thing is like the sixth house here, we have Venus and Jupiter in the sixth house. Well, this may actually indicate because Jupiter is the soul enemy of Venus, and Venus is a triple Chitra graha. This may indicate that there have been issues or currently issues with like a spiritual leader, teacher, guru type person, and that may be like that kind of turned the person off, the native off to any kind of formal program of religion or spirituality, like who comes to mind? Yogi Bhajan, I think of the Kundalini tradition, because it came out with him, because he has so many followers from his institute in New Mexico, United States, and it turned out he was, taking advantage of followers and stuff like that, and created a big upheaval in the community. And some people just said, forget it, it's too much for me, and left the whole thing. And other people have maintained their spiritual practice in that lineage, but have, demoted him in their minds or in their practices or whatever. So it's sort of like separating the message from the messenger is what I'm seeing here with the D20, rather than saying all or none, or it might be worthwhile to check out some other places that'll be more supportive than they have been in the past or they are currently. Okay, but again, you can see through all of this, it's about, even this with the spirituality religion piece, it's about creating structures for support and to relieve the nervous system of all the stress. Okay. So there you have it, the full moon coming up this weekend on the 24th. As always, I want to thank you for your time. I always appreciate you stopping by, listening to one of my talks, and all the lovely comments. It's very sweet, so thank you for that. All my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are my concepts playlist. They can all be found there. For individual birth chart readings on Zoom, if you're interested in that, you can email heartlineastro@yahoo.com. I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine, which includes other Vedic arts such as Ayurveda and yoga, as well as other paradigms of medicine such as homeopathy and naturopathic medicine. The name of that channel is Nature Source Care, so that's out there too, if that's helpful to you. So as always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. So until the next one, take care. Namaste.